Very pleased to have this class with you this evening. So ideally, we are going to start exactly where we stopped. We've been able to look at the front end. We've been able to look at the front end. We've been able to look at the different aspects of the front end. We looked at JavaScript, though we still have an issue with jQuery. So today, I want us to start looking at PHP so that everything we do makes a little bit more sense. Unfortunately, I do not have access to the laptop I use for teaching. The one I have, if I overstrain it, it will just shut down abruptly. So you would allow me to follow the notes strictly, unlike the first few classes where I didn't share follow. So, as earlier, so we earlier said that we have the front end, and this is what everybody sees on their computer. But behind this, we have what we call the business logic. And business logic are things like APIs and back-end scripts. And then beyond this, we have what we call a database. I'll represent our database with something with this phone. In the middle of this, we have what we call middleware, and the database will communicate to this um, through what we call models. We shall look at many of these things, but so far what we've covered is what we call a front end. And when we looked at JavaScript, we were mostly looking at what we call front end logic. The JavaScript that we created yesterday on the other computer that I don't have here was mostly to add logic to, like, when someone enters in an entry or commentary, what really happens. You'll do more JavaScript when it's what happens when someone fills in a form and they want to see maybe an error message in case they put in a wrong input in that form and etc. But whatever I did, they have cannot be remembered if we open the browser in it right now. So we need to look at this aspect of the website. And with this is the very most important part of the website because it constitutes what the website understands, where it saves its data and etc. So when we are to look at PHP, which is a back-end scripting language, we are going to look at about three things. How PHP is integrated to the front end, that's one. Number two, we shall look at how business logic is created, that is the PHP syntax. Then number four, we shall look at APIs, what are APIs and how do we use them. And then number four, we shall look at how to communicate with our database, and that's number four. That's number four. Then number five, we shall now cross straight to MySQL, or what I prefer to call MySQL, to sync everything together. So we have a puzzle of five things, and we've so far covered. We have a puzzle of four things, and we've so far covered one. And what we're going to learn covers the remaining two, and then we shall only be left with the MySQL. So, coming back to our notes, PHP PHP in full is hypertext preprocessor, but since that sounds like HPP, I would ask myself why is it? It's because PHP was originally created in French, which is pre hypertext preprocessor. So PHP is currently on version 8.4. And it's funny that people still use version 7.3, and PHP has been growing over time. Minutes. Minutes long. Yeah. So in PHP, we are going to start with the different syntaxes that we have in PHP. And the very first one is called echo. You see, so many people confuse echo and print. These are two separate, they are so similar but separate ways of getting an output. Echo will give you an output in the browser because it's natural that PHP was built for web development. So when you say echo hello sports hub or hello Nasim, hello Bara, it will print that out in your browser as an HTML string. Whereas when you say print hello Bara, hello so and so, it can give you this in the console, in the terminal, but it's a little bit more slower than echo. That's why people prefer echo over other. So, uh, if you have something of the sort, there is also another way of using echo in HTML. Let me try to zoom this in. First, wait, if there is a way we can get rid of this. Perfect. And let's try zooming to 150. If there is 175, perfect. So I was saying that if you have an HTML document and you'd like to add a PHP tag inside of it, you would have to start with the opening tag and then you add whatever is PHP inside and then you close with the question mark and the closing tag. Question mark and open, question mark and close, and whatever you do here is PHP, and PHP will be pasted directly into your work. So, but mind you, your file must be saved as a .php, not as a .html. So that means from now hence, for moving forward, you're going to rename every HTML document you created under your sports scope project to .php because you can't insert PHP under an HTML when the file is being processed as an HTML. Otherwise, HTML will just give you an output of exactly what you are in there. So I've said you just add a question mark with the opening tag and then a question mark with the closing tag. And this will be able to output for us the current date in time, in hours to seconds. The next thing that we need to learn from the PHP syntax is how to declare variables. Variables, we shall need them a lot as objects under functions. To declare a function, you need to add a dollar sign in front of it. And then you must make sure that the very first letter is small letters, and then if it has the second part of that variable, like you see app name, then the second one should be capital letter, just like we do in Java. That's the same way we do in PHP. And when we go back to primitive data types that we have in PHP, we have a string, of course. This is also a string. We have booleans like true or false, 0 or 1. This is also a boolean. We have, but this can also be wow, joking amount of money in class, I can put them in and we have bread. We have bread. So can you already we can have um you can have an integer like 0 and then you can have a floating point number like 0.17 and then we can have the null variable that is explicitly a no value. So these are the different primitive data types that we have in PHP, and we declare their variables by adding a dollar symbol in front of the variable. We can also have another one that is an array. You can have an array whereby you get different things under a curly bracket and then you list them in there. And this will be very important to prepare our data for what we shall call APIs. So just as a repeat, now before I go even deeply into this, I hope you understand these different primitive data types. The so-called strings, the booleans, the integers, the floating point numbers, the null value, and then sometimes when we have declarations in PHP, we say we get to declare something like say include such and such kind of a file, include such kind of file once, include and then this file requires one. So we often use such declarations to lock a file for to maybe someone who's authorized to see that particular file. Let's say if it's a home page and we only need logged in people to be able to see that particular file, then we can say that it includes or it requires so and so. And then also, if you have some things that are reusable, let's say like the header, and you want to use that same header or the side menu on different pages of the website, you can include it or include it once. The difference between, as we shall see later on, and I will repeat this when we reach at that stage, the difference between these two things, let me illustrate them for you. Mm, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to use this to save how much I'm straining this computer.